I know I have a lot of very easy bad balance videos I could make on SF4, such as Super Makoto, Super E Honda, AE Yang, Vanilla Zangief, or every version of Hakan. I'll probably eventually make these videos, but I've had one in my head recently which seems really interesting to me, and that's T-Hawk. I'll explain what about T-Hawk makes his case particularly novel at the end with a case study where I compare him to another character. T-Hawk was added to the game in Super SF4, the second update, released in 2010, and normally I'd start the video by talking about his release version, but I think it's worth mentioning that he was actually planned to be in vanilla, but simply didn't make the final cut for time and budget. The very first version of the game, the arcade version, had the 12 original SF2 characters plus 4 brand new characters. The first update, which was the USA home console port we all call Vanilla, added only 3 of the 5 later SF2 characters, Fei Long, Kemi, and Akuma, as well as a bunch of popular Street Fighter Alpha characters such as Rose and Sakura. Data for T-Hawk and DJ can be found on the home console port, including beta versions of their models, but they probably lost to the Alpha characters since DJ and T-Hawk were relatively unpopular, with somewhat derivative playstyles compared to popular and unique characters like Kemi or Rose. I think this really speaks that T-Hawk was a fairly low priority character to the devs, and honestly both he and DJ probably only made it back specifically to complete SF2's return roster. The reason I bring this up is that the afterthought nature of T-Hawk's inclusion seems to continue into his updates. After Hakan, T-Hawk might have the strangest set of normals in the game, mostly because they don't really seem to have a central idea. They're a faithful recreation of his normals from SF2, but a lot of them really seem to have no purpose. His jabs are actually fairly good, with nice range and good plus frames, plus they chain. For those who didn't play SF4, pretty much every character has fantastic light normals, and links from lights into cancelable mediums or heavies are pretty much standard to every character. The relatively low scaling on light normals, plus their low pushback, great linking routes, and a greater number of special moves which combo from lights, make lights extremely powerful in engine. And on the surface, T-Hawk's light normals seem to be extremely good. I mean, look how many of them you can get. Their mediocrity actually comes from T-Hawk's specials. The only special move T-Hawk really wants to cancel into is his uppercut, and the extremely poor reach of his uppercut means it will only combo after a single link. If you get multiple light normals, you've got to link into either his far or his crouching medium punch, which are, believe it or not, his damage optimal enders. While you can chain out of your jabs, T-Hawk's crouching light kick is only plus 3, which means to combo out of it, you need to get a 1-frame unplinkable link, which must be immediately cancelled into an unsafe special move, or linked into a string with no knockdown. And if you say, well, Baf, he's a grappler, and grapplers are supposed to have mediocre confirming options. Well, you're right, and that's actually very astute, nice observation. However, even in the same version, Zangief has light normal confirms like this. And for God's sake, Seth has a 362, and he gets confirms like this. Before I forget about it, close light kick is pretty awful. It's the same speed as his light punch, but it loses 10 damage. You can't chain out of it. And it's only plus 2 on hit, so you can only combo out of it if you cancel it right away. Amusingly, the activation range of the close version is bigger than the hitbox range, so from certain distances T-Hawk gets close light kick which can't hit, when his far light kick would. Let's talk about his mediums. Close medium punch is T-Hawk's strongest cancelable normal, and it's also very fast at 5-frame startup. Hawk notably has a 3-frame link into it from his close light punch, and a 2-frame link into it from itself. These links are T-Hawk's only links into a cancelable medium, and his most useful links in general. Because you're linking into a close normal, the cancel won't work after multiple normals since you'll be too far away. Most characters would rather link into a crouching normal since they're not range dependent, but T-Hawk has no cancelable crouching medium. This is a big weakness compared to most characters, but not unusual for a grappler in SF4's engine. Ignore Seth, he's special. Linking medium punch into itself is kind of a unique case, since you'll often get the far version of medium punch, even with perfect timing. A quirk of SF4 is that the activation range of close normals depends on your opponent's character, so this link goes from easy to outright impossible, literally depending on who you're fighting. Scenarios like these ultimately led to the removal of range-activated normals in SF5. The far version of medium punch is actually quite a decent normal. With 90 damage, only 6-frame startup, and surprisingly great range, it's a very strong poke. In fact, it's such a good poke, it outright outclasses several of his other pokes, as you'll see. I will also give it credit that it still combos in scenarios where you wanted close medium punch, so you're not unsafe when you drop stuff. T-Hawk's crouch medium kick is a similarly good poke. 6-frame startup with even more range. Plus a low hitbox. It saw quite a lot of use as T-Hawk's light normal link ender, since it's a bit more reliable than far medium punch at its max range. Close medium kick is completely outclassed. The damage is lower than close medium punch. The startup is the same, the plus frames are worse on hit and block, and the cancel routes are somewhat worse. Far medium kick is bad, but kind of interesting. Both the range and damage are significantly worse than stand medium punch, which comes out at the same speed. In fact, the range is significantly worse than far light kick, which is by the way a 4-frame normal. As the animation suggests, it does have a low crush component to it, but that's less useful than it sounds. Low medium punch has lower damage and less range than far medium punch, with the same startup. It appears to attack on both sides of T-Hawk, but sadly that's a lie. It only hits on the front. Close heavy punch is a really strange one. The damage is nice at 130. And it's plus 6 on hit, but every cancelable normal you have just can't go into anything since you're too far away. And I'm including EX moves and super, there's just no routes. So linking into a poke is as good as it gets. Far hard punch has good range, good damage, and an acceptable 8-frame startup. Once again, we have quite a good poke. I want you guys to really pay attention to this one because it'll come up later. Crouch hard punch is a poke, but the range and startup are significantly worse than far hard punch. It's 2 hits, but at max range you'll only get the second hit for a measly 50. It's too slow to link into, it's not plus enough to link out of, and it doesn't cancel. It's mostly good for breaking focus, but you have to be quite close to get both hits. You might think it'd be a good anti-air, but it trades with air normals when it doesn't lose outright. Close heavy kick was almost never used. It's actually T-Hawk's strongest normal at 140 damage. But unlike close heavy punch, it's duckable and you can't link out of it, so in practice it's actually weaker. Far hard kick is one of T-Hawk's most iconic normals. The range is astronomical and the damage is quite good too. Most characters could duck it. But believe it or not, being able to duck high attacks depended on your crouching hurtbox back then, whereas now being duckable is simply a flag on the attack itself. Anyway, even if you could duck it, it went so far that when used at max range, not everyone could easily counterpoke it. It was also a fairly good anti-air versus far jumps. It's not invincible, but the damage here was good enough that you'd actually be coming out ahead on trades, especially given T-Hawk's above average health. Crouch roundhouse is a 2-hit sweep like Guile's. As reach goes, it's pretty good. The second hit seems useless on the surface, but it has the nice side effect of being a built-in option select against invincible backdash, which was a very common defensive option in SF4. Annoyingly, the second hit of the sweep only does a meager 50 damage compared to 120 on the first hit. The whole thing is -7 on block, so even considering the enormous pushback, some characters could punish it. And the first hit wasn't a true block string into the second hit, so it was possible to do something invincible between the 2 hits. Or more practically, focus. Level 1 focus backdash could easily be used to punish the second hit on reaction, and focus forward dash could even be used to get a huge punish if the character's dash speed was good enough. T-Hawk's air normals aren't really worth discussing on the whole, other than jump light punch. It cancels to his air special move Condor Dive, including as an instant overhead. Sounds like a great option against down back, but sadly it doesn't hit any crouching opponent. Fighting game veterans might guess that it would be extremely strong as a fuzzy guard option, and you'd be right. After a blocked air normal, it actually creates a pure 50-50 between unreactable overhead and unreactable low. T-Hawk had a few command normals, and they're all pretty interesting. Air down heavy punch is a body splash, and like all body splashes, it's really good. It's just a cross-up with high damage and a huge hitbox. Air down medium punch is one of the game's weirdest normals. It actually can't hit grounded opponents at all. You might think, oh, it's a dedicated air-to-air, but it has no particularly useful effect when hitting a jumping opponent. It was considered useless by most of the community for quite a while, but it does have one interesting effect, and it's not really clear if it was the developer's intention. Since it technically does have a hitbox, it puts the opponent in proximity guard if they're close enough, but it can never actually hit them. So whiffing it makes your empty jump SPD stronger by making it harder to walk out of SPD range. Down towards light punch is a rare instance of a command light normal. And good lord is it bad. I cannot tell you what the developer's intentions were with this one. It's basically just another light, but it has a crazy long recovery. On block it's -8 and on hit it's -4, so it's actually outright punishable. The damage is the same as his other light punches. You can't chain into or out of it, and you have identical cancel routes. It seems to do absolutely nothing his regular light punch doesn't do, except it's punishable even on hit if you don't cancel it. I have a wild theory that during development this might have been an overhead. It's completely unreactable, but there's no conversion from it except an immediate cancel to DP. A true mix-up with Crutch Light Kick, but with tons of risk associated with it. This would have been a very interesting and powerful tool, but in the release version of the game it can be blocked low, and it's just an awful version of his other normals. Let's briefly mention T-Hawk's other attributes. His health and stun are both 1100, a bit above the standard value for this game, which is 1000. His walk speed is kind of slow, and his dash speed is especially slow, which is also true for Zangief. I think developers were afraid dash SPD would be very strong for grapplers, particularly block level 2 focus dash. So they made the dash slow enough that level 2 focus dash is minus on block. Onto his special moves. T-Hawk's SPD has good reach, and it's naturally unblockable. It's 2-frame startup, which is tied for the fastest meterless attack in the game. It's actually so fast that it can punish a lot of things that were bounced around being safe. The insane speed of his SPD is the same as Zangief's, and it's without a doubt T-Hawk's strongest tool. It's basically the mechanism that makes the rest of his options work at all. The EX version is completely invincible to hits. It's a bit slower at 5-frame startup, but this actually makes it work as a punish to safe jumps, which wouldn't work if it came out faster. I have nothing bad to say about T-Hawk's SPD for the most part. It's the thing saving him from being bottom 1 in the game, but there's one very annoying quirk to this special move. The light one has the best range, but the lowest damage. While the heavy one has the least range and the highest damage. But there's another difference between the versions. Did you notice it? The heavy one left me full screen, whereas the light one left me right next to the opponent. You lose an enormous 80 damage for using the light version compared to the heavy one, yet the light version was invariably used since keeping the Yoki's Emme was considered far more important than the lost damage. This created an unusual scenario where T-Hawk used the light version of this move in almost all contexts. Zangief's version works much more cleanly. All 3 versions of his SPD leave him the same distance away from his opponent, which is far, but you can whiff green hand during the hard knockdown to get in close. So you actually pick the version you want based on whether you want range or damage, and all 3 are useful. T-Hawk's other specials are much more mediocre. His DP looks very serviceable on the surface, but finds lots of subtle ways to be awful. It is T-Hawk's best anti-air, but the hurtbox is surprisingly bad, and it will often trade or lose to air normals unless you do it very early. Only the heavy version is really reliable, and that's the slowest one by far. It's generally your only special move for combos. The damage seems okay, but after links the heavy one can often fall out due to its poor startup. So the light and medium ones are typically used. Of course, even they can be extremely suspect, as I've been showing. As a reversal, the DP is awful. All meterless versions can be beaten by both attacks and throws, which is very unusual in SF4, where lots of characters have meterless frame 1 invincibility. The EX version of his DP is very unique. Not only is it actually invincible, but you can spend a second bar to cancel it to his EX Condor dive. This does good damage, but probably not as much as you'd expect for its high cost. Annoyingly, you can't buffer the dive, which actually makes it precise to time. It's possible to burn the bar and get nothing. Interestingly, it also works on block, making his DP much harder to punish. T-Hawk is unable to FADC his uppercut, but he can spend 2 bars to make it safe all the same. Of course, this is worse than a regular FADC since it doesn't work in the corner. Reverse DP punch is Condor Spire. This is like a really bad version of Kami's Spiral Arrow. The startup is quite long, but T-Hawk has a continuously active hitbox as he moves, and while it's unsafe at close range, it's safe if it hits at the tail end. This move mostly serves to give T-Hawk a movement-oriented special, and is more for whiffing than actually using as an attack, especially since up close it's actually punishable even on hit. All meterless versions are too slow to combo into. The EX version actually knocks down, and if you're point blank you can juggle to an EX uppercut. This is just flat worse than doing EX uppercut to EX dive, so it's not a good 2-bar option. However, there is the extremely fringe scenario where you can spend 3 bars and land all 3. More importantly, the EX version travels through fireballs. The range and speed are both very poor. If you wait for the fireball to be close to you, you'll never hit the extended hurtbox from the fireball animation. This means you need to do it predictively, which is very aggravating for a move which costs super meter to use. Very obvious parallels can be drawn between this move and Zangief's Green Hand. However, on basically every metric, Green Hand is significantly better. For 1, Green Hand travels farther and recovers somewhat faster. For 2, even meterless versions of Green Hand can still be used to beat projectiles, though it's quite precise and still requires prediction. For 3, EX Green Hand beats projectiles at any timing due to its huge reach. For 4, it's frame 1 hit invincible, so it's also just a great reversal. For 5, EX Green Hand is fast enough to combo from light normals, and thus makes an excellent combo ender even from really far out. The only edge that EX Spire has over EX Green Hand is that at precise ranges it can be safe on block. But it's astonishing how much better Zangief has it. T-Hawk's last special move is Condor Dive. There's only a single version of it, and it's an air special move that's basically a dive kick. On a neutral jump or forward jump, you can cancel your existing momentum and dive down at the opponent. It's quite unsafe on block. How unsafe depends on the height you connect, but it's generally minus at least 20. It can be used to beat fireballs, but it's very precise to jump and dive fast enough to actually punish them. You almost need to jump predictively. You can also potentially cross up with it, and there are setups for that. It can simply be anti-aired on reaction, sometimes even by anti-airs intending to beat a normal jump, and if it is blocked, most characters can even get huge punishes. But people looking for anti-air block do get beaten by empty jump SPD, so it does have a mix-up tied to it. Being able to alter your jump arc is very powerful in Street Fighter, especially SF4, but this is probably the single worst option in the game to do it, simply because it's slow, stiff, and unsafe. T-Hawk Super is a one-frame command grab, like Zangief's. I can feel the power of the earth. Most supers go unused in SF4 due to the high power of FADCs and EX moves in the engine, but T-Hawk doesn't have that many good ways of spending meters, so he actually uses his here and there. The damage is nice, but there's no way to combo into it besides focus. Its utility and punishes is great though. Ultra 1 is identical to Super in terms of function, except the Ultra's damage is higher, while it's using a less precious resource, your Ultra meter. As Ultras go, this is actually a very good one I think, though the lack of setups obviously hurts it compared to more confirmable ones. Ultra 2 is an anti-air Ultra, and it was absolutely awful on release. The whole premise with this Ultra is that it catches people who are in the air because they're trying to get out of the way of your SPD. The problem is, it's miserable at catching backdashes. Miserable at catching jump away. And not even that good at catching neutral jumps. It has a very long and awkward motion of double half circle back, which makes it really hard to use as a reaction anti-air. And the motion didn't allow for shortcuts yet, so you need very perfect inputs. For the late part of Focus Crumple, the opponent is considered airborne, so anti-air ultras normally work. But T-Hawk's Ultra 2's hitbox is so high that it fails to catch the opponent unless they're a tall character. This means that not even Focus can be used to confirm it, which means it has no confirms at all. It really was frustratingly bad. So that's Release T-Hawk's kit in a nutshell. If you never played SF4, that's not really enough context to tier him, and it's kind of complex to even explain why he was bad, so here's some contemporary footage of him while I try and break it down. A few different things were keeping him from thriving. For one, his combo routes are extremely stiff and borderline non-existent. He only has a few confirms, and about half of them are just normal strings with no ender. He's very risky, with a huge reliance both on doing SPDs, plus making aggressive reads with unsafe attacks to catch backdashes or jumps. His punishing power is very suspect. He's good at punishing close range stuff, but he really struggles to get meaningful punishes against attacks that recover far away, like Honda's headbutt or DPs that whiff under him. And this might be a bit surprising, but he actually suffers a lot from having extremely low damage. It seems like he'd be really strong since he can land 230 damage off a single 2-frame command grab, but actually, you're usually landing the light version, which is only 150, and his combos are only doing about 200 as well. Most characters can hit significantly higher numbers by getting some kind of combo extension, or juggle, or FADC to ultra, but T-Hawk doesn't have confirms like that, so it's difficult for him to get more than like 250 damage in one go. Another much more abstract reason he's bad is that he has next to no depth. There are very few things that can distinguish a really strong T-Hawk from a mid-level one, besides being really good at landing your 720s in a lot of different contexts. Characters like Juri, Akuma, Chun-Li, Guile, or C-Viper have advanced tech that can drastically improve both their damage and their neutral options. But T-Hawk's skill ceiling is insanely low, which makes it really difficult to improve with him. An even more abstract reason why he's bad is that his core gameplay concepts are just kind of working against each other. T-Hawk's pokes are fairly good, but on hit or block they're pushing the opponent out, preventing him from getting close. You might think that good pokes and a good close mix-up mean that T-Hawk's effective at all ranges, and to some degree that's true, but many characters could outplay T-Hawk's pokes in neutral, and for those characters T-Hawk's good pokes are actually not very helpful at all, and he's left with very little. Here's a tier list from the Super SF4 era. You can see T-Hawk near the bottom if you squint. I've underlined it for your convenience. Yeah, he's near the bottom, but he's viable, right? He's not bottom tier, right? Well, true. I think Super SF4 T-Hawk is not worthy of a bad balance video in and of himself. And in fact, he's got buffs every single patch, so this is the worst version of him that exists. So what gives, Baf? What are we even doing here? Two things really make him interesting though, and the first is how unbelievably timid the developers were with giving T-Hawk buffs. Let's go through his balance history. Arcade Edition was T-Hawk's first balance patch. Most of his changes were really inconsequential. For example, close hard kick is now better on block, but that's meaningless when it still whiffs on crouching opponents. Neutral jump hard kick has more active frames. You never use this normal. Like Condor Spire got a slightly better hitbox, while all versions of Condor Spire build more meter on whiff. This isn't enough to make it a good special move, but at least you're building more meter in neutral when you weren't building almost any before. Also his super got a bit more range, which is nice but not very impactful. I can feel the power of the earth. T-Hawk only had two other changes, but these two are actually very useful. For one, he can now do EX Condor Dive in neutral, when in Super he could only do it after EX DP. Besides just doing more damage, this recovers farther away, making it significantly safer than the meterless version. It's also somewhat faster as it travels. All three of these qualities make it much less risky when trying to do things like punish fireballs. It's safer, but not always safe. Certain characters have options that will still reliably punish it. The other significant change was a big list of buffs for Ultra 2. It now comes out faster, has a bigger hitbox, more invincibility, and significantly more active frames. This makes it actually good at anti-airing, and way better at catching jumps and backdashes. Plus, you can actually use it after Focus Crumple, so it has 1 confirm instead of 0. Here are some tier lists from top players of Arcade Edition. As you can see, they don't think T-Hawk was very good, despite these buffs. What the heck happened here? Well, the thing is, every character worse than T-Hawk got buffed a lot more than he did. Not only that, but T-Hawk was no longer a new character, and his very predictable gameplay was really starting to hurt him. Well, you know, the devs tried, but this wasn't enough, so definitely next version they're really gonna touch him up properly and address his core issues, right? The next version was AE 2012. Now, T-Hawk's close hard kick is a knockdown, and it's a bit faster too. Sounds useful, right? Well, oops, they forgot to give T-Hawk anything with juggle potential. The only juggle that works is EX Uppercut, which only works point blank and only gets its second hit for a paltry 50 damage. This normal still saw 0 use. T-Hawk's head is now Fireball invincible during his sweep. This only helps him against a single Fireball in a single matchup, but being able to sweep Sagat's high Tiger Shot more easily was actually huge, so I'll forgive them for such a specific buff. Crouch Heavy Kick had a bit of extra block stun on the first hit only. It's still not a true block string, and you can still focus punish it, but now you can't press normals between the hits, so it is somewhat safer. Thrust Peak, T-Hawk's Light Punch command normal, has a single extra frame of hit stun. It has no new cancels from this change, and it's still unsafe on block and hit. This one reads almost like a troll change, like they're rubbing it in your face how useless it is. Both T-Hawk's air command normals can now be done on neutral jump. This is pointless for his elbow, but for the body splash, I guess you could hit people who pass underneath you. Might be helpful for Balrog or Faye, or something where they could whiff a special move under you. The medium version of your uppercut specifically became throw invincible. This gives you a single meterless option against meaty throw, which still loses to hits. It's better than not having it, I guess, but making a hard read on throw like this is too risky for too low of a reward most of the time. Previously, even when it worked, EX Condor Dive would often bounce off the opponent back into slow fireballs. Now it's Fireball invincible in recovery. Finally, Ultra 2's input is more lenient, and you can miss directions and still get it, which is nice for consistency. Now, here's an AE 2012 tier list. When people saw AE 2012's patch notes, they could just see that these buffs weren't enough. T-Hawk was considered a worse character in AE than he had been in Super, yet his change list was even more modest, making it obvious that the devs weren't really trying to bring him up to par with the rest of the roster. Somewhere around this time, a meme started that the next patch, Capcom should quote, give T-Hawk a gun, so that he could finally become a viable character. Well, Ultra SF4 came out, and it's actually a pretty nice little list for T-Hawk, though for the record, Ultra was probably the most generous with buffs for all characters of SF4's various updates. First of all, Ultra T-Hawk walks faster, which really helps him close the distance in neutral. Close medium punch has less pushback, making the two medium punches link consistent, and making throw reset stronger. All versions of Spire are now much faster, which lets them work in more scenarios and lets you whiff them into command grab much more easily. In addition, the light one is now safe on hit even at the worst possible range, which is kind of cool. EX Spire also got a range buff, though it lost some damage for some reason. EX Uppercut can now be FADC'd. You don't have a combo afterward, but for 3 bars you can now be truly invincible and then 100% safe on block, which is invaluable. Light SPD got a tiny range increase, as did Ultra 2. Prior to release, there was a lot of fuss about the big change that was supposedly going to make T-Hawk a significantly better character, adding a special cancel window to crouch medium kick. This was very prominently featured in his official patch notes video. Normally this would be very useful, since this is now T-Hawk's longest range cancel, you can link into it, and it's not tied to proximity like close medium punch. But amusingly, it ends up being really useless, since from any range other than point blank, T-Hawk has nothing that will combo from it. It ended up being a really irrelevant change, which I think is made hilarious by it being one of the main selling points of the patch for him. It was basically just a higher damage version of crouch light kick in practice. The absolute most useful thing I can see for this is that T-Hawk previously did long linking sequences that ended with a crouch medium kick by itself. Now he could cancel it to get a space spire for some free chip. At the risk of eating a reversal, of course. About half a year later, we got a final tiny patch, the Ultra 1.04 patch, which actually had a couple changes for T-Hawk. For one, they slowed his spires back down a little bit. You actually can't play the original version of Ultra, only the 1.04 patch version, so I can't show you what the old spires were like. But it's hilarious they rolled back a buff when T-Hawk had been so middling for so long. But the other change in the 1.04 patch is actually insanely cool. T-Hawk's medium DP specifically is now 2 hits. This seems pretty useless on the surface, but the thing is, in order to make the second hit juggle from the first, they gave the second hit juggle potential, which can actually be used in several of T-Hawk's combos. You can also red focus cancel the first hit, which gives T-Hawk a 3-bar confirm into either Ultra, which is huge. Well, that was the final balance patch of SF4, so here's some early impression tier lists, and you can see the opinion on T-Hawk was pretty good. I wish it stayed this way, but I think in modern times he's regarded to be closer to the bottom again, but he seems to be comfortably outside the bottom 5, so the changes at least made him viable. He never had any real tournament success over the entire lifespan of the game, and he only had a few serious players, which shows how low the faith in his kit was. In my personal opinion as an SF4 veteran, he's viable but middling these days, and no dedicated grappler player should be maining him over Zangief, or even Hakan or Hugo, since those two at least have a good amount of depth to them. Anyway, earlier in the video, I said I'd do a case study with another character, and as you probably guessed, it's Lily. Lily is a spiritual successor to T-Hawk, and has almost pound for pound his normals and specials, but there's an obvious difference in design philosophy for Lily in that the devs actually wanted her to be a strong character. Now, as of this recording, she's regarded as one of the lower tier characters in the game, but if you actually go and look at her matchup spread online, she's got almost flat 5/5s across the board, with only a bad matchup against Dalsim. Well, you guys probably know how Lily works, but let's take a quick little look at her through the scope of T-Hawk. Her ability to string lights is the same as T-Hawk, but unlike Hawk, she actually has very decent enders even at max range, namely her medium uppercut, her EX Spire, and her drive rush cancel. And all three allow her to convert into a knockdown. Just like T-Hawk, she has some really impressive pokes. Stand medium punch is very similar to Hawk's, but even more solid. And there's a few matchups where she can almost play with this normal alone. Medium kick and crouch medium kick are mediums which you can link into from afar, which give her reliable medium normal cancels. Stand heavy kick is just like Hawk's, and it still works as a poke. Stand heavy punch is just like Hawk's close heavy punch, but it cancels. Crouch heavy punch takes one of T-Hawk's worst normals, but overhauls it into Lily's best. Reliable anti-air capability, massive range, good speed, conversions into max damage combos, good active frames, fantastic utility as a counterpoke. The closest thing I can think of to this in SF4 is Vegas Crouch Medium Punch, but this is even better since Lily can get her conversions on reaction to a successful hit thanks to the 2 hits making it a standalone confirm. And it's not just the normals which are allowed to be better. Spire goes way farther and is easier to space. Dive is easier to use against fireballs. And all versions of DP are better anti-airs and work more reliably in cancels. But the single biggest difference, the change that actually understands the weakness of T-Hawk, is Condor Wind. Lily has a special move where she can improve all of her other specials in damage, range, speed, and plus frames, and because of this move, you can't truly zone her out, because she can get it up for free and then use the stock she stores to close the distance in a way that's almost impossible to prevent. Windstock gives you amazing answers to fireballs in Wind Condor Dive and Wind EX Spire. Plus, it forces opponents to actually approach Lily rather than simply zoning her all day. Which is something T-Hawk simply lacked. And T-Hawk's biggest weakness, finding scenarios where he could actually push his mix-up, Lily gets unblocked with any Wind Condor Spire. Not only that, but even regular Wind Spire is fast enough to combo from Lights plus grants her a knockdown with Okizeme. Giving her the reliable meterless conversions that T-Hawk always lacked. I know that not many players played T-Hawk back in SF4's heyday, but Lily is like a love letter to them, taking all the tools he had and making them actually good. People say Lily is a bit barebones as characters go, but I think a lot of people don't know what she's supposed to represent, which is an apology to T-Hawk mains. Anyway, that's it for this video. Next one is probably Hakan, or Arcade Edition Yang, but I don't know when I'm going to roll around to it. Probably faster than this video, since I actually have some free time again. Thanks for watching.